So this is going to be a slightly longer video. If you guys remember, last season, it was an article that was written during the season, but in the off-season it sparked fire. It was an article about Carson Wentz, his leadership issues, an anonymous Eagles player calling him out for targeting Ertz too much, all that stuff. You all remember that. That was a big topic of discussion this past off-season. I talked about it a lot headed into the season because I felt it was mostly just BS despite targeting Ertz too much and despite the offensive struggles. All that made sense, but targeting Wentz solely was kind of a little bit of a low blunder because, in my opinion, it wasn't his fault or him, it wasn't all on him, right? At least that's in my opinion. The same reporter, the link is in the description. It was Bleeding Green Nation. This is off of Brandon Lee Gowton, who basically just talked about the article. The actual article, I don't know, but that's the link will be in the description on Bleeding Green Nation if you haven't seen it or read it yet. He talked about it. I have it all on paper. I'm going to break it down and talk about it myself, what I think about it. It was Josina Anderson. She dropped an interesting tidbit, and in quotes, well, with the team being 3-3, obviously an Eagles source also talked to me about how the offense is functioning. And this is in quotes. One of the things that they said is we need to make shit bleep. They bleeped it out, but make shit simpler. Sometimes you need to handle what is manageable. They even said even Peyton Manning knew when to check it down. Now, before I talk about it, let's continue on because Brandon here, the writer of this article that I'm reading off of, responding to the initial reports, makes a lot of good points, and I'll talk about them in a second. Carson Wentz, as of now, is 38% on passes that travel 15 yards in the air and has 3 interceptions on passes like that, 0 touchdowns. Now, let's see here, which is tied for the most in the league. Okay? He also has 148 passes on those that are 10 yards or fewer. Right now, he has 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions with passes like that. So I do think it's an apt point. And now back into quotes. The other thing that the source pointed out is that he said, I feel like we're over-targeting Zach Ertz, over-targeting tight end Zach Ertz. He leads them in targets with 111. This is that's all last year's quote. So this is the same reporter, again, with another anonymous Eagle, whether it's the same or a different one. It sounds to me like it's the same, but we don't know it, obviously. Going off about how Zach Ertz getting targeted so much takes the entire offense out of the rhythm. And then this is Brandon Lee Gowton, again, this is him actually talking about the article in response to that report, that he'd like to say that it's not great that Carson Wentz's teammates aren't really giving him any damn help on the field this season. He's far from the team's biggest issues right now. And as for the stats Anderson trotted out, I love that too. I can just imagine him and multiple people, myself included, saying that exact same thing in response. A source complaining Wentz is not checking down enough, but that he's being too aggressive down the field. And we're not including the context of the 2 interceptions that came in the first half of the Falcons game, where the game plan was immediately scrapped right before the game, minutes before kickoff, due to inexplicable injuries to Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, and Dallas Goedert. 3 starters. And the 3rd interception was a garbage time interception that was also a tip drill against the Minnesota Vikings this past Sunday. That's some pretty bullshit criticism to me. And he also points out a tweet that, again, in the description, quarterbacks who have produced negative plays, sacks, interceptions, and fumbles at the lowest rate through 6 weeks is the top 10 list of the best quarterbacks in regards to not doing that. So interceptions, fumbles, getting sacked. Number 1 on the list, Patrick Mahomes. And again, this isn't just taking into account turnovers or interceptions or fumbles. It's taking into account sacks, and that's the biggest thing. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Carson Wentz. Number 3, Dak Prescott. Number 4, Mason Rudolph. 5, Jacoby Brissett. 6, Aaron Rodgers. 7, Tom Brady. 8, Teddy Bridgewater. 9, Matt Ryan. And 10, Matthew Stafford. So, basically, summarizing this article up, there's another anonymous Eagle, whether it's the same anonymous Eagle or a different one, talking about how Carson Wentz needs to check down more often, that he needs to take what the defense is giving him and handle what he can maintain. But then you hear Brandon here, the writer of this article, responding to that report, talking about how Carson is A, not getting enough help from his wide receivers and targets, B, drop passes, and C, has been holding on to the ball much more often, mostly due to the fact that he is not forcing anything down the field. He's not throwing the ball unnecessarily here or there or trying to toss it into triple-double coverage. He's either tossing it away, watching a wide receiver drop the pass, completing a pass, or on a rare occasion taking a sack, which in the end is better than an interception or a fumble. He has not once fumbled the football this season. He's thrown 3 picks that we talked about already, 2 against the Falcons after a game plan was scrapped minutes before the game was started because of injuries that all of a sudden happened to 3 of our starters, and then a garbage time tip drill interception against the Vikings this last Sunday. Clearly the issue with this, if it's the same anonymous Eagle, the issue with him is more personal towards Wentz than if it's a different anonymous player as opposed to last year. So what I'm saying is, if it's the same one that said stuff last year, that clearly there's something personal with him and Wentz that he does not like. There's something going on between him and Wentz, and he's coming out anonymously to the media to get out his frustration or anger. And I talked about it last year, or when the initial report came about, that if this person is saying this stuff anonymously and not rather to Wentz, clearly he's, one, afraid that he's going to lose his job, and 2, doesn't have the courage to stand up and talk to his teammate and leader Wentz about what's going on, and 3, he can't be that big of an impactful player on the team, especially not on offense if that's the case, because we saw it last year. Everybody came to Carson Wentz's defense. Deshaun Jackson came back to Philadelphia to play with Wentz. Jeffrey came here to begin with to play with Wentz. Zach Ertz has had 2 of the best seasons of his career with Wentz, and one of the best seasons in Eagles history, regular season-wise, was because of Carson Wentz. Clearly there's something more personal and more in the locker room base with this person, if it's the same person. If not, then clearly there's something going on with Wentz and some players. But it's not too drastic nor that big of a deal that really, it can be easily resolved. And to pick on Wentz now, I understand the entire offense because the offense has been sputtering a lot. Drop passes, running game comes and goes. Not too many sacks nor turnovers. It's mostly just drop passes and inconsistency when, yes, the passing game comes around, but it's not on Wentz's fault for holding the ball too long like last year, taking unnecessary hits like last year. He's been playing really smart for both his sake and for the team's sake. Again, 3 total turnovers, all interceptions, 2 of which happened in a BS first half where he did not have his starters and the game plan was just gone, and then in a garbage time part of the season where the game didn't matter at that point and it was another tip drill. So reading this, I do say this. The only thing that I agree with what was reported was that the offense needs to be simplified a little bit more. I feel like there is no need to try to force or to compensate for not having Deshaun Jackson by doing other sort of big plays that take time to develop. Wentz will take time away from throwing the football and stay in the pocket, scramble a little bit to try and get his team open. And that's another thing. Carson Wentz doesn't scramble around to save his own skin. He's always looking down the field, especially this season. He's not taking unnecessary hits. He's not scrambling down the field trying to make the big play. He's trusting in his teammates to make something out of nothing at this point. When the play is busted and Wentz is scrambling, moving around in the pocket, what is he doing? He's looking down the field, looking for Ertz, Jeffrey, Aguilar to get open so he can take a shot for them. And it's not like he's not taking shots down the field either. So a lot of this in the article was really bad, in my opinion, or the report was really bad. The article itself, again, link in the description for you to read it at your own time and whatever. I agree with everything except for Carson Wentz as being the biggest issue of it all, because guess what? He is far from it. So let me know what you guys think about this whole Carson Wentz drama attempt. It was on 94 WIP, the Mike Miscellany show. That's why it kind of sparked my attention. My dad brought it up to me, and I looked into it, and I had to nitpick it. I had to bring it up to YouTube, to you guys to talk about. I'll see you guys tomorrow when I break down the Eagles and Cowboys game. It'll be a fun video to make. Fly Eagles fly. I'll see you later.